The TV is crazy and the truth has gone. I might be crazy, but I think we're done. There are people out there who are adverse to fun.
Communism is king.
It's on your news. Even your neighbor has been here. You can see it on YouTube. It's time to shine a light. On all the things they don't want you. Tom Generation Next. Oh, it's what's coming next. Tom Generation Next.
Commander Worf, don't be a cunt.
I'm having such a good time.
Kill everyone on the bridge.
Having a ball.
Fuck you, Mr. Rascal.
My name is Owen Jones, a renowned drama queen, pseudo-intellectual and champagne socialist.
That's for B4.
What can I do? People no longer love the truth.
Shut the fuck up.
What's true? That's why we gotta shine a light. Oh, shine a light, shine a light. We gotta shine a light. Oh, yeah. Together forever. Yeah. Tom Generation Next. Oh, it's what's coming next. Tom Generation Next. Yeah. Tom Generation Next. Beyond your channel. Zero news to now. Tom Generation Next. We're gonna shine a light. Generation X.
Yo, I'm Tom Fury. This is your news. Hopefully I'm going to get out to you today. If I don't, but I'm going to try. I did want to, hopefully, if we got the battery power and everything else, I wanted to talk about something called, we would call it Muslim supremacy, or perhaps militant Islamic supremacy, whatever you want to call it. But I want to come back to it. When I say supremacy, I mean in our minds, often there's an idea that's portrayed, and I want to challenge it with a few things. So I want to come back to that. But just as a brief aside, walking around now, February's always, hasn't been this year, but February is generally a good month for me because I know where the days get longer, you can see it. And so even though it's like technically a month where you get a lot of snow, in my area you don't get a lot of snow, but you get, in my area what you get is even all the way to April you get snow at 6 a.m. Snow's actually caused by a clash of hot and cold. It's not cold weather that causes snow, it's hot and cold weather clashing that causes snow. So it happens just as we go into the parts of spring. So if you get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, you would never know it happened. The sun would just burn it away. Anyway, so it's February. So February is technically and often the worst month. Although that can default to January sometimes. The last few years, we've been getting double digits in January, often 13, 14 degrees in January, which is way above average. Our average should be about 8 to 6 where I am for that time of year. But it's been happening for the last few years. And it doesn't necessarily mean you get a good summer, by the way. It's just the way it's been. The February is your typical month for your drop-off. Whether you get a north-south split, it's your drop-off month for a lot of places. Down here, again, doesn't quite apply. If there's what gets wind on the mic, tell me. Hey, Capricorn. Hey there, Babs. Good to see you. Tell me about the mic if there's any problems. Remember, I'm only seeing a third of the comments, probably. And so, excuse me, like I say, it's February. So this is the month of, 8 degrees and on a bad week, -2, -3, or worse. And don't get me wrong, March is your month, although I love March because you're getting to the 12 hours of light point. you still can have the middle of winter appear anywhere in March. It could be just as cold, it could be just as ruthless, just more sunshine. Come with me, with me, this way, 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 with me, this way. Stop, 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 and go. Sorry about that. A lot of people around. Yeah, I think that's partly why, because of the weather. So, sorry, I don't want to make this too long. So, yeah, so February's not normally your month you look at as being, you might get above average temperatures, but it's not the month you look at for spring weather. You're just noticing that it's lightening up and that. Even in March, it can turn against you quite badly. This year, I mentioned to you that in December, my daffodils are coming up. They actually got murdered by the only cold week of weather we've had down here. But in a lot of other places, they survived it, and the daffodils are flowering in early February. A lot of them have already done their cycle. I think, sorry, yeah, so the weather we've got coming up, so apparently we just recorded a 16, but what they don't tell you is it was a 16 with a wind chill factor of about 10 degrees, so it didn't feel like it. What's going to happen this week is a bit different. Where in my area it's going to be 15 degrees, which, to give anybody out of the country context, for my area 15 degrees is something you would expect on a day more in, say, April, not February. And January can be weird around the world in the Northern Hemisphere for creating strangely warm temperatures when things settle. February, not so much. So, so we're going to have this day of 15 degrees, but it's not just a day of 15 degrees. We tend to do this in this country, but it takes all day to get there, and it feels fucking cold. I can feel the winds changing warmth. I've never felt this in February. So I'm coming out here now, and I'm being hit by a wind that's not cutting into me like a cold winter wind would. It still feels cold, but it's got a softness to it. Something you only get in spring. It shouldn't be here. And yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange. I mean, everything's been waterlogged everywhere in the country. But this day of 15 that's coming, it's already warming up. Every day at the moment, it's way above average. The night time's way above average. If you think, I've been camping in May, and it's been 3 degrees Celsius at night, and at the moment it's around 10 to 11 degrees. So, to put it in some perspective, so we're having a day on Wednesday that we'd be expecting in April, and if it was warm in April, you might expect a day that's closer to May. Kind of how it works, roughly. So, I don't know what's going on. What I will say is it's really going to fuck the narrative, because basically what we've had in my area is near consistent rain since the moment our last great summer last year came to an end just at the end of August. In September it started raining, and as the proof around me still shows you, it hasn't stopped since. It just has not stopped, and I think this is the case for a lot of places in the country. Places that were designed to hold water are overflowed everywhere. Everywhere is, yeah, it's like it's hard to take my dog for a walk. And it gets wet here in places since they've messed around with things, but this is different this year. This is totally different. This pond, they nearly lost the pond because it was extending all the way over there, and you can still see the water there. And I think they've pumped the water out to save it, because it was just, there would have been fish all over the place and everything. So I think what we'll have is the wettest winter on record for some time, but I can see the way they're going to spin this. So it counteracts the narrative of having no hosepipe bans and all the rest of it from the terrible heat waves that we actually didn't have last summer. And so we have all this rain. They'll say it runs off the surface. Yes, it does when the ground gets full, but when you've had consistent rain over a long period of time, since September to now, that rain goes somewhere. It goes in reservoirs, right? They're full to the fucking brim. So you get a hosepipe ban this summer, Yeah, anyway, so I hate all this shit. So I will get off this subject in a minute. So they're going to shift, they're going to pivot, I think, to, yeah, it was the wettest, but we told you this. It was also one of the warmest, and we told you that global warming would create the conditions for more tropical, rainforesty type weather, where there would be a lot more rain, but it would be warmer, which would be a play on the truth, except that for the last 15 years, they've been pushing the idea on us that we're getting drier, hotter, 40 odd degrees, therefore we're going like a lot of the Mediterranean countries. I got a feeling they're going to pivot back to the rainforest theory. So keep an eye out for it, because literally at the end of February is when they will publish the results. Somebody asked them the other day, oh, has it broken any records for, for how wet it is? They wouldn't answer based on the fact there was a few days of February left. They already fucking know. They already know, but they won't answer because it's not scientific. Bullshit. You do a lot of things that aren't scientific. So anyway, yeah, so we'll see. But they'll pivot. They'll pivot, or they'll go quiet. It'll be very, very quiet. But there are no records for coldness broken. But have you noticed as well, the forecast that makes the headlines, it's a bit like when you accuse someone of something they didn't do. The recognition that you were wrong never takes the same amount of headlines as the accusation itself. So last year, they predicted, 4 heat waves. Many of you believe they happened because you saw the nice weather. And it's never checked. It's never held against them. This year, they've forecast crazy snow time after time after time again. For most of the areas affected, people in those areas have said to me, yeah, we had 10 minutes of snow and then it just rained. But it's the forecast that they're lodging in your head now. Never used to be like this. Anyway, challenging the Muslim supremacy. When I say Muslim, I mean militant Islam. I mean the so-called moderates that know exactly what's going on and hide it. I mean the people that in some way or another aid and abet it, just even by simply admitting that they would not out those people for causing harm or doing harm or wishing to do harm. So all of those people that are on board with that. There's some things that we've focused on, rightly, in this movement, whether it's people like them, hey Missy Moon, hey Spawn, good to see ya, anybody else I've missed there? Hopefully not, Capricorn. The one thing that we have done is like, Danny Roscoe did a great interview with Louise from Rwanda, and she talked about Dave Rudikabana's likely upbringing, his ideology, his attitude towards human life, which totally different from ours. The shame he had when he went to court was not about killing. It was about who he didn't manage to kill. The tally wasn't big enough. He was a failure. In his head, he would have been a failure in the eyes of the people that wanted him to do that, because, yeah, you're supposed to do a lot more damage than he did, believe it or not. The regard for human life isn't there because they see it being taken very young. I know people say, oh, he was British. His parents had ties to some things that, because I can't 100% prove it right in this moment, I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm going to say ties to in Rwanda, right? And yeah, there's plenty of evidence to support he was trained and other things. So what we've looked at the moment is the fact that, hang on a second, is the fact that Muslims, or even some immigrants that we've looked at that obviously don't subscribe to the religion of peace, some of them have done these crazy attacks on people and that as well. And what we've looked at so far this is not a self-defense video. What we've looked at so far is the people that have had training, the people that have come from war-torn areas, and how dangerous it is. I mean, these days it's dangerous to pick a fight with anybody, even if you're, say, a boxer, because you don't know that person might have Brazilian jiu-jitsu and crack your arm off, you know? These days you shouldn't mess with anybody for the way they look, because you may be surprised. That's what's happened, which is not a bad thing. People can defend themselves now, but so we tend to look at these monsters who've had the training, who've had what they've had, and their training, by the way, isn't that great when you consider they still didn't do the jobs very well when you look at it from a purely non-emotional point of view. Nevertheless, there's this idea, I think, that we've presented by mistake, that these people are superior to us because they've come from bad backgrounds, because they are used to violence and everything else. We've come to the idea that these are all trained people and they're all ass kickers from war zones that we can't handle. And there's some truth to that, but there's also a massive, massive disservice we've done ourselves and you. And that is to say this: there's an awful lot of these people that support the most extreme elements of the religion of peace, will even engage in some of it. But what you don't get told so often is, I've been in multiple situations with these people. Some things you don't talk about on camera, or unless you've got the camera footage, you don't talk about because you've got no way of proving it. Or like I did when I was with Tommy, went into a place with a camera and then managed to get the camera lens covered over with something and risked my ass to get nothing other than audio. But in that situation, you had I didn't see the whole room because you're survival mode. You're focusing on who and what matters, who's closest to you. So I'm not, you know, I know there's a chance of an imminent attack, and my closest help is there, but he's outside of the glass on the other side of the door and across the road. So signalling him would also help me. So when you got two of them stood behind you, one stood in front with a massive, great big blade, and others in the kitchen, they're brave. They're very, very brave. And they seem prepared to do anything, except I was able to talk my way out of that situation without kissing anybody's ass, which suggests something else. We'll come back to that maybe. Anyway, I've seen situations where they talk a good fight, or they make the right noise as you're leaving with a camera to make it sound like you're dead. You know, like they do in school. When you're at school and you've literally just punched someone in the mouth, or you put them in their place, and then rather than settle the score again for a second time, they will go, "You're dead," at the end of school, and you're like, "Well, why not now?" Because they know they don't really mean it. That's what these people do. "Oh, you're dead the next time I see you." It's like, "Well, why not now?" Because you know you don't mean it. So the thing that goes unreported about these people is they're weak. I'm not talking about the ones that have been trained but they aren't the majority. A lot of these people, you've seen them yourselves. They're fat, overindulgent, sex pests. I'm not talking about all Muslims, yeah? But they're fat. They're talking about the ones that caused the trouble that we know they've caused. They're fat, overindulgent sex pests, fundamentalists, or they will at least be part of the onion that protects fundamentalists. Most of them, if they threw a punch, they would fall on their face. And what you tend to find, like here in Southampton, when they finally did attack the protesters in Southampton here, they attacked a child, a female child, with a female protecting the child. When they had superior numbers of men, that's what they do. That's not a new thing. That's not a new strategy. This is exactly how they operate. With the exception of these people that think they're about to go and see 12 virgins, which of course, if you believe that, emboldens you to the point of murder and stuff. And especially when you've been trained as well to believe all this shit from young, then you are dangerous. But some of these other people, they know what they've got here. And they've not just grown soft, but they never really had it hard. Look at the guy we interviewed from Kuwait, who was in one of these migrant places. Kuwait's a rich country. Like, it's one of the richest countries in the world. So the idea that every single one of these people has come from poverty, no, a lot of them end up, you've seen them, fat bloke, fat missus, ugly children. I'm joking about the children. So this way. Yeah, they will only attack when in superior numbers, and if you're in insignificant numbers and your numbers get reinforced by people coming from somewhere else, these people, rather than stand their ground like we would, will dissipate immediately. So, and I think this is important, because the resistance have been put up against them in Southampton, for instance. It's fierce, but it's not numbers. It's not a numbers game. If it was a numbers game and an intelligence game, as in the amount of intelligence flowing around, we'd lose. But it's not, because it takes 3 of them to do the actions of one patriot, and I'm being serious. This is a good thing. This is not me gloating or trying to put them down. This is a good thing. This helps us. This is why, rather than doing stupid self-defense videos and everything else, this is why people like myself are saying to you, when you're going to demos, stay in groups of people. They don't like groups of people. If you're a group of women and you don't particularly want to be with men, fine, go as a group of women. There is nothing more frightening to someone of a religion of piss who is a fundamentalist than a woman who can stick up for herself. If the women start putting a beating on a man, like, that's a shame they can't live with. They would rather avoid that confrontation. They'll pick on an easier target. Fact, they will. Yeah, they do all the talk, but you see people, white people, Christian people that do that, stand across the road from your mouth off. What does it mean? It means a whole lot of nothing. If they're standing mouthing off, beep, 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 if they're standing mouthing off, it means that you can de-escalate the situation just by walking away. And you know you're in relatively no danger as long as you watch your back. But this is what I've said to you over time. When you go to demos, even now at the moment in towns, cities, whatever else, it's not a coward move to say you need people with you. The reason it's not a coward move is you're not allowed to arm yourself. You're not allowed to strike first. You're not allowed to do a lot of things. Well, I say you're not allowed to strike first. That's not exactly true, but you know what I'm trying to say. There has to be certain conditions. And a lot of people just aren't fighters. So first things first, getting yourself out of trouble and into safety. And it's like, a lot of these people are all gob. They just want to claim some kind of victory that they haven't earned. So if you feel a danger to yourself, there's nothing wrong with getting out of Dodge, especially if it's a bunch of males picking on a bunch of females. It's just how it's done. Or they'll pick on younger people. And I was at Speaker's Corner, and there's so many stories, and I've got some. Everybody could probably tell you similar stories. Every time they've confronted me and Tommy, there was always like 5-on-1, 3-on-1. When they confronted me at Speaker's Corner, there was 3 of them in balaclavas, so they couldn't be recognised. There was other stuff going on. If they wanted to hit me, I had a camera in one hand. I was pretty defenceless. But I held my ground. But I didn't walk forward, and I just carried on filming. And they tried to intimidate me. And what I didn't know was from behind me, Ginger came running up one side, bless her, and someone came running up the other side to defend me. Now, I didn't ask for that, but them being them, they're not going to see someone be bullied. So they pulled up by the side of me. And now, bear in mind, I think both were women, and then a guy joined afterwards. I'm not exactly sure, because obviously you can't see behind you. I'm fixed on them. I'm not turning my attention off them. And they just fucking disappeared straight away. Not even a mouth, just gone. So you only need a group of people. I'm not saying this is going to work every single time. What I'm trying to tell you is, the majority of times, it's a bit like, you got these people talking about doing fighting and everything else. Most people in the world don't want to fight. And the two things you need to understand is, if you're in a position where someone's seemingly wanting to fight you, and you don't want to fight, then someone who is a real fighter will probably offer you an out, what I call an out. And that out is quite simple. They'll either crack a joke with you to give you an opening. It's an olive branch if you see it as that. And what it is they're trying to say to you, I don't want this fight either. Or, I see I'm going to win this and I'm trying to give you a way out of saving face. It's up to you not to use your ego and see when they're doing it. If you're not a fighter, then saving face shouldn't be your primary. Saving your face from getting smashed in should be your primary. So a lot of people will give you an out. Other people, most people I've ever met, don't really want to fight. Like, men understand that they can kill each other, and they know this. So most of them don't genuinely want to fight. So if you give someone a way out that saves them face, they'll take it. Or if you try and crack a joke with them at the most tense point, because you can tell they don't really want to be there, they'll take it. They'll grab onto it. You've got to give people an out. And notice when they're giving you an out. Because it's there. The time that you can't do that is when you're with someone who genuinely wants to fight. There are some people who are just so used to fighting, they don't care. They're the ones to watch out for. Most other people don't actually want it to happen. So then when you look at these groups of Muslims, you realise that a lot of them are living in middle class areas. Only the younger ones are out in the more impoverished areas, selling their drugs and everything else. Not all Muslims. We're talking about a specific brand, which is unfortunately too many. Too many of the moderates involved in this. Supposed moderates. So, but it's important to understand that they are always a group of people that sees power in numbers, power in sex, gender over gender, even power over kids, because they don't treat kids the way we do. Obviously, fuck me, that's the most understated thing I've said this year. That should tell you it all. So, what I will say to you is, this year could be a terminal year for a lot of things, and there may be a lot more violence to come. If you're going to demos that could involve this kind of thing, leave your kids behind. There was a time these things were family friendly. I remember when, other people will tell you this, Tommy used to do loads of family friendly demos and it was safe. Then the police started leading Antifa to us. I'm sorry if the wind's getting bad here. And then the, what do you call it? Sorry. Yeah, they were leading the Antifa to us. But most importantly, they were leading the MDF to us, who are much more willing to actually do something. The Antifa are pussies. They really are. They might stab you or something, but only because it's something they could do from behind where they don't risk any harm to themselves. The MDF were chucking bottles and stuff like that. And there was fucking kids and everything in the middle of it because it was a family-friendly demo. They didn't care. They don't care. So the only thing I'll say to you is, if you're going on demos and stuff like that, if you think there's a chance of encountering these people, not so much the left, because they're pussies, but of the actual militant Islam or the people that support them, then understand that your pet or your dog means nothing to them. It's your weaknesses they will prey on. It's your women they will play on. Even though I know plenty of women can look after themselves, but again, don't imagine this would be a one-on-one. You're kidding yourselves. It will be a 3-on-1 minimum. So the first bit of self-defense is de-escalation, which if someone's standing their mouth and off, you can walk away from. It's just a bit of pride, that's all. But the other thing is understanding that they don't like numbers. Even what we might call small numbers, groups of 5, groups of 6, groups of 7, they don't like it. Even if that's a group of all women, because they still have a potential of being made to look like idiots. They don't like it. So it doesn't stop all attacks. It doesn't fix everything, but what it does is it put these people back in their box. And the women of Britain need to realise these people are terrified of going to war against women and being shot by a woman. It's like the biggest disgrace that they could have. So I'm not suggesting that women should start going out causing fights for these people, because you'll get killed. But what I am saying is, if you're ever desperate and you're in a group of women, their biggest fear is being leveled by you, which is to your advantage. Again, things only said in the desperation of the moment if you can't get away, not advice for aspiring people to go and fight. There is no winner in most fights, so I'm not advocating fighting. I'm saying if you're in a no-win situation, you might be surprised that the win's right there. You just never knew it. Because winning doesn't have to be beating your opponent to death, does it? Winning needs to be walking out of a situation unharmed. If you look at it like that, then there's a lot more situations going on where you can win. Now, when you've got some knife-wielding maniac on a train, different. But when you got people who are there, you know, you'll see many of them lack the courage of their convictions, and that's the one thing that they didn't bank on. They thought they would come over and inject the Western world with their poison, and they see our culture as their poison. What I'm seeing, especially where I am now, where the Muslims are brought into my area, but now they've been cut off from other Muslims. Do you know what I see? Those Muslims are fast adopting, you can believe this or not, Western values. In fact, so much so that many of them just don't practice their religion. Wonder if that's why, yeah, the speed of bringing them over. Because a lot of them are abandoning their beliefs. Think of that. The religion that people don't want to leave, around here, they're leaving for a better life. So when I say they lack the courage of their convictions, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying there's many of them out there that we've given too much credit about their belief. Their belief in the mullah and their belief in the NHS and the benefit system is far bigger than their belief in Allah in a lot of cases. Come here. Come on, baby. Come on, come here. Behind me. Here. Now, come on. That's it. Right, stay. And when you understand that their love of money is bigger than the love of Allah, you start to get somewhere. When you realise that because they've got high grade jobs and stuff like that, then you start to realise that the PR comes into it, the Muslim PR. You start to realise they're scared of bad headlines. That's why they mob the media when something goes wrong. There's a whole chain of things that are linked together. You must have seen the massive PR campaigns when they do anything wrong. So they're scared of a lot more than you realise. And the only thing they've really got going for them is money. And you know where that money's coming from, which has been able to, well, let's say, potentially influence the likes of Farage and God knows who else. It seems to be, whether it's Israel, Saudi, and even now Russia, Ukraine, and other governments, it seems that everybody is taking the influencer route and trying to buy their way into people's favour rather than earn it. It's a weird, strange thing that's going on. I get it. Some people feel that they don't have the time, but I just don't want people to feel as weak as some of us may have accidentally made them feel in terms of the people that we're up against. Because the majority of them aren't trained. And the majority of them are fat, overindulgent sex scum. Or if not sex scum, then just fat, overindulgent pigs. And you've got no reason to be frightened of that. Except, again, if you're not used to conflict, why get into it now? Just seriously, like, having a fight with a Muslim on a street corner isn't going to solve anything. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'd really just encourage against it. All I'm trying to say is you don't need to be as frightened as people are, because a lot of people are frightened. The amount of phone calls I've had since we went to Southampton, did the demo there, frightened people, and they're understandably frightened. But the one thing that we haven't told them is, yeah, there's all this real dangerous stuff, but there's also all this other stuff that suggests they're scared of you. And I suppose the reason why you don't advertise that part is because you're scared that people will get out of the green light and go in. So it's there's some trained people. And that's probably why it's best not to fuck with people. But that's the same with anybody in this country now, or in America. Don't fuck with people and sum them up. Don't judge a book by its cover, because there's some people out there that will fuck you up. So if you're not genuinely prepared for combat, don't provoke it. I saw a guy on, it's got from Sean Jones' channel, quite a big channel now. There's a guy on there with big busts and everything else, walking around faking fights and giving people attitude, and he gets slapped by a proper actual gangster for acting like that on his tab, sort of thing. And the guy is beside himself, not understanding what he did wrong. And it's like, you can't be a fake tough guy on the streets. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. Is like a lot of the intel and stuff I saw is these people were not on the streets. These people were in nice middle class homes, doctors, police officers, and what do you call them? Solicitors, stuff like that. You know. Hey there, Justice. How you doing? Hi to America. Hi to Getter. Hope you're still connected. Getter, thank you for the support. We're still growing, one by one, but we're still growing. I'm not going to stop with Getter until we get at least 10,000, and then when we do, I won't be stopping. I'll be expanding. So, doing great on there. And yeah, you know what? In spite of everything, we're not doing too bad on YouTube. We've been around for a while, so we're getting there. We're getting there. Oh, my mic's died. Shit. Oh yeah, fuck. Sorry. I've got it. Thanks for that, mate. I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. Thanks for that. Is that picking up now? Well, dick. Right, let me just have a quick look through the comments. I've got to drive my dog, so I can't stop on for long because she's absolutely sopping. So, have a quick look through comments. 1 second. And that Donald Trump is weighing up his options. Interestingly, his Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff gave an interview. So interestingly, said to you yesterday, held my hand out, and been contacted by. So interestingly, been contacted by some people, but none of them being the people that I was reaching out to. Isn't that interesting? But that's cool. Like, I don't expect any different. But yeah, early days though. You know, you've got to give people time. Don't just assume the worst. No, don't assume the worst, guys. You know that I could get contacted any moment now. No, you know I could get contacted any moment now. Someone trying to mend bridges. Sorry, I'm being a dick. Right, let me have a look. See what I've missed. A lot of the young don't drink or take drugs, and there are apparently fight clubs in a lot of mosques. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's a lot that's. I mean, what happens in the mosques over here is unknown. But we know there's like Bethnal Green Girls, a lot of that. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying these places don't exist. What I'm talking about is the people that, in fact, the people that tell those kinds of people what to do, even those people, fat, useless twats. And you'll see that, listen, you go to, I've got to be careful what I say. You go to a department store in certain parts of the country. You go to a indoor shopping mall in certain parts of the country. You'll see the slobbering messes I'm talking about. If you go to an airport with flights to and from a certain country. You'll see one particular country, not others, just one. And you'll see the messes that are getting on and off the plane. What I'm trying to say to you is they're not, yes, they have these training things, absolutely. But the majority of them are messes. And a lot of these fat people are the ones that are come and confront you in the street. So just, again, I'm not saying attack them, get in a fight with them. All I'm saying is bear in mind, a lot of them aren't what they seem to be, like tough guys. So they'll come over like that. They might try and hit you. They might try and hit you once. But they don't, most of them don't want it. But like I say, you've got to be careful. If you're not used to those scenarios and reading people, then just don't get in them. All I'm saying is there is a road to de-escalation. There is a road to walking away. And I don't want people to think that every single person's had training, every single person's impossible to get away from, and every single situation is life and death one. Because if you think like that, that's exactly what you'll create. And you'll end up rolling around with someone with a knife when that you didn't need to. There could have been a way of walking away from the situation. But if no one tells you, look, some of these people don't want to fight. They're just mouthing off. Some of these people are just trying to be big. Just like you see a lot of the teenagers today trying to be gangsters. So therefore they won't rat anyone out. They won't do this, they won't do that in order to preserve an image. But really, they don't have the guts behind it. Same thing. And I'll tell you what, from the people around here, they don't know fuck all about their religion. Nothing. They are useless, and it's not fake. Like they don't know nothing about it. Not really. I mean, they know bits, but they know less than I do. Yeah, mosques themselves are the places where they organise things like the Bethnal Green stuff. But that wasn't just the mosque. That was the mosques, the schools, the the community. It was a closed community. And you'd created a training ground there, and when you're in a place like that, that's different. You're in trouble there. But again, it's about spotting people. Again, you'll see the fat, untrained mess and his missus who are clearly overindulgent versus these types of people very clearly, even in the way they carry themselves. But again, that was putting a lot on people. But even in the way they carry themselves, you can tell someone is mouthing off. Like, if you watch Tommy Robinson's videos, they're actually a good way of looking at it. If you watch the people that have ever gone up and hit him, and the ones that have just talked about it, the ones that just talked about it do too much talking, and the ones that are really prepared to do it just do it. And that's a pretty faithful rule of thumb in life. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. The more talking you do, the more pre-warning you're giving someone. So the more talking you do, the more likely it is you don't really want that situation. So if we're on here teaching you that every single Muslim is a potential, no, not potential, every single one of them is a trained army soldier, you're going to put yourself in a position of thinking, oh shit, there's no way out of this. They could be just walking away. And the majority of them will take that victory, and they won't pursue. Partly because they couldn't, because they'd have a heart attack if they tried. But yeah, the mosques are a different thing. We need cameras in those mosques, or they need to be leveled to the ground because they are different. They, again, like I said to you, the moderates and the people around the onion who are considered to be not part of the problem, they are part of the problem. The polls have reduced over years and years and years have proved they're the problem. They will not rat out anybody that plans, does, or has caused violence. They will not stand against their own. They still will not put Islam behind the laws of this country. They openly say this in polls. So the moderates are a problem because they are the onion that protects the extremists. So they're all of them are culpable in that way. And the mosques and stuff like that, even if the person in the mosque can't envisage the violence, they still encourage it. They still encourage it, and they still tell people the things that they tell them, knowing what the results are going to be. Those places need to be either, like I say, filled with cameras or leveled. But that's a whole different story from what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about, like I say, remember a lot of the ones that I've dealt with, I've dealt with the ones on the streets which were dangerous in numbers, and I've dealt with the ones that are on, and they live in these, middle class homes and everything else. They're actually quite frightened. of being made. So the ones really are the ones on the streets, but the ones on the streets that I've seen, majority of them won't attack unless they're in numbers, and that says a lot about their psychology. So, and they will go for the weakest, the women, things like that. So, like I say, groups of people will not solve the problem, but it will put a massive amount off. Groups of women, as I said earlier on, just to finish on it, groups of women will frighten them because the last thing a Muslim wants to be is beaten up by women. So you, just like between two white guys, the threat of violence, the unsaid threat of violence when you look at each other across the street, nobody likes to talk about this, but the unsaid threat of violence prevents it. Because, Jordan Peterson spoke about this, but there's always an unsaid threat of violence between two guys, no matter whether it's high up there or low down there, it's there. But it's what stops us from committing it. It's it's like a guard system. It's what culture is for. It's what culture is for. We know our cultural norms, so we behave appropriately within them, regardless of our feelings and emotions. This is why when you mix two cultures together that don't mix, what you're doing is you're changing social norms. You're asking a culture that's taken 1,000 years to not kill each other over basic trade, laws, things like this. And then you put another barbaric culture over and try to force it into a culture that's taken 1,000 years to learn how not to kill each other. This is what culture is. People like to undermine the British culture, say it's not worth anything. Well, the over polite British culture and the way that we are has prevented violence for a very long time. We are the way we are. Sometimes we hold things back and we don't speak our minds. All of this prevents too much conflict. Our culture is important because it's a culture defined around preventing conflict. So don't tell me our culture means fuck all. Don't tell me, explain anything about British culture, what you mean other than the institutions you've already torn down. It's peaceful. We were welcoming. We are not people that search for conflict. Well, we could passive aggressive sometimes, but we're generally trying to find a ways around it. Because we have a culture where we understand each other's values, each other's motives, and we try and work within that framework. That's called culture. That's why we have cultures. A culture is a system by which we can all have traditions, understandings, get along, not misunderstand each other, not misread each other, and as a result, not go to fucking war with each other. People try and devalue culture. People try and devalue the culture of what we got in Britain. That culture is what stops us murdering each other. That culture is what introduced those morals. Otherwise, we'd be like people in the fucking rainforest, still to this day, killing each other in revenge. We realised that had to stop somewhere. So we have a culture based around that. So that I can go and buy fruit without looking to see if an arrow gets in my back. I know that may seem like an extreme example, but it's where it came from. Is my point. Those were its origins. When you force other cultures in, you've got away with it up until the Muslims, because many other cultures were quite amenable. You got to a similar place as us. When you force in a culture like the Muslim culture, what you've done is you've given us the antithesis of our culture. So what happens when matter meets antimatter? You've got the same thing, two opposites. They don't attract, they collide. That's the truth. They don't attract, they collide. That's what you're seeing now. Perfectly simple to understand, but here we go. Where have I put my glasses?
I do think that.
Do you know what? While they're abusing our school systems to teach us about our kids about Islam and that, they might as well. Why does this always seem so zoomed in compared to my other phone? Noticed that yesterday. I'll look at it another time. It just seems, yeah. Anyway, I think while they're throwing around all this stuff in schools about Islam, they should teach our kids about Islam, but the bits that we want them to know, so they're fully equipped and prepared for it. But they'll never do that. But yeah, I mean, the thing of it is as well is like there's a lot of stuff that's happened that we haven't been able to report because parents want the information out, but they don't want their school name because they know they're going to get shit. So I've had so many stories of people having stuff that their kid made at school, completely innocent, maybe a poppy, maybe something like that. There's one in the news where I think the kid's parents, the kid created a gun out of, I think it's like Lego or something like that, and it was offensive to the Muslims. A gun was offensive to the Muslims, and so the parents got brought before the school over the kid creating a gun. It was, and that was a few years back now. So the way it is in schools with parents and that, but the problem is parents are scared of exposing it because it means they feel it means giving up their school or trusting people like me with the paperwork where we would blank it all out. But they're afraid of that. They're afraid of it. And I get why, but they don't realize that if we was to blank out the right things, we could show people this and keep their identity safe. But they need to be able to trust us. Yeah, they really do. But I can give secondhand information, but it's never going to hit home like the truth and the proof.
The reputational harm that could be done by having him associated with them. And again, it comes back to this separation point now. Both the King and William, both palaces have to be seen to just...
Is it true then the police need to give 2 weeks notice to raid a mosque? I don't know. I mean, a raid in terms of, like, say it was a drugs raid. A raid, you don't need to give notice because otherwise it's not a raid. It's a search warrant. So it's a search that they know is coming. Whereas a raid is usually something that's done without the consent of the people that they are doing it to, because they've got enough suspicion to suspect what they're going to find when they do that raid. So I would imagine not. I would imagine that they don't have that pre-notice unless it's just a search.
Ukraine war has become...
Oh, they can. I think there are other ways where they can generate a search warrant and not show it to the people until they turn up on the door. That's another way of doing it. But yeah.
Where the fight is being waged, it feels never ending.
It's going backwards for your comments. If it seems like I'm going backwards, it's because I am. I can't see all of them. Actually, yes, I can.
And the wider international order about whether borders can be changed by force.
Yeah, I mean, the stashes are here. The stashes are also in Ireland of what they've got, their justice. But apparently, if you can believe what you think you can believe, they're not the only ones with stashes, especially in Ireland. Both sides have got the stashes. So,
As the fortress melts. 4 years in and fatigue is setting in. We are skirting around the front lines at the moment.
Just reading through your comments.
No longer can Ukrainian troops move in large formations. It's simply too dangerous. The threats of attack.
Yeah, the CB radio is something that people are really embracing in Canada and other places. So they are catching back on again, the CB radios. It's you wouldn't be isolated in using them now. They're being used by a hell of a lot of people. And you can get a lot smarter radios now as well. Even if there's, like, if you're with somebody else and you're scared, like, they've got good range on not CB radios, or even walkie-talkies now. They're amazing now, what they do compared to what they used to be like. A lot of our youth has been feminized, you're right, but I do see that some of them are coming around. We're getting more and more young conservatives coming through that we never had before. It's fashionable. It's fashionable.
There is a first-person view drone, an attack drone in the sky above us. So the soldier we were was told us away.
I think that's a good way of describing it, and Vin would know. Think of Moss as HQs and intelligence centres. That's exactly what they are. And then when you've got the schools and the councils in league as well, you can see why Bethnal Green happened. It is a good idea for the men of the country to be trained, fit and strong, but the problem is we've got a lot of people over 50 who've never had a fight. If you look at the average age of the people in this movement, and what you've got is people trying to teach them self-defense and stuff like that. And this is, I'm not even hitting out at anybody here. This is just the frank truth that let me just turn the sound off of here 1 second. I'm going to tell something that the men won't like to hear. If you haven't been regularly fighting in your life, if you weren't a fighter when you were young, if you don't fight in bars, if you've not had training in a gym, if you've never taken a punch and since you were at school, you're not a fighter. And the chances are that if you start trying to learn to fight at 50, you get yourself killed or knocked out or worse. Well, worse than knocked out, I mean, not worse than killed. It's not a good idea. You don't have the muscle memory. The first thing to go is your chin. And if you never had one and you never had a fight, you got no business getting into fights at 50. I understand it, right? Some people get to 40, they get to 50, and they think, I wish I'd been more of a bad boy. But you weren't. You weren't. For whether you were trying to do good, because there's nothing proud about going and being in fights all the time, by the way. But whether you were trying to be a good person and you succeeded, whether you were a pussy and now you realize you didn't need to be, regardless of the reason, it's too late. What you become is a fucking liability. Because when people are trying to organize groups that are trying to do something good for the people and the local residents and everything else, you're looking for a fight that you think that you can back up just because you've decided to be angry. Being angry doesn't win you fights. Deciding that in your mind, I'm going to be able to lift the person up off the ground. No, you won't. You go to lift them off the ground and you'll find out they're a lot heavier than you thought they were because you were thinking about this with fantasy going on. There's a difference between the two worlds, which gets forgotten when you haven't had a fight for 30 years. You need to also realize that fighting is not like it used to be. If you had any skills in any area of fighting, you would probably win a fight. These days, there's a lot of people who've got some basic training. Even I've got basic jiu-jitsu training, and I mean basic. But I could still rip an untrained person's arm off, or I could have done a few years ago. I don't know if I'm getting too old now. But we've all got something hidden. Yeah, and you can't judge a book by its cover anymore. Those days have gone. That's why you're better off not getting in a fight. It's just simple better off not getting into it. I don't look to get into trouble because you don't know who you're getting in trouble with. It's just not worth it. And at the same time, if you're going around looking for fights that only fights that you can win, you also shouldn't be out there. Shouldn't be looking for fights at all. So yeah, so what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people, and I see them, these sweaty messes that come on to our live streams and other people's live streams, these sweaty messes that are getting themselves all worked up, calling other guys out, they should do this and they should do that. And it's a projection of themselves. It's a projection of the man they've never been. And when you're doing that around, say, me, it's not so bad. When you're doing it around someone like, say, Vin, or other people in this movement who've been actually had military experience, it's embarrassing. But also, all it lets them know is that you are a liability. Should anybody ever need you to be in a combat situation, you've got too much to prove. And at that age, too much to prove without the abilities to back it up means you not only could get yourself killed, but everybody else as well. And this is not coming from a military background or any other background. No, nothing. This is coming from a common sense fucking background. We don't. Whenever I've been in a tense situation, we don't go for the guy doing the most talking, as in terms of who's going to back you up and who's not, who's going to run. The guy doing the most talking is usually the guy who does the running. So I learned a long time ago, don't trust anybody to have your back. And if someone does, that's a bonus, you know? So no excuse not to learn self-defense, but it's also not an excuse to use it the first opportunity you get, because you, again, have never had a fight. Why start now? Especially when you get your ass kicked and then you end up going to the police officers to complain when actually you wanted to try out your martial arts that don't work. So there's some, what's the word, responsibility that needs to be taken by people. Nothing wrong with getting in that gym, improving your confidence, improving your fitness. Do you know what wins the majority of fights that aren't to the death? What wins a majority of fights is just fitness and the willingness to keep going. If you've got the willingness to keep going and you're really, really fit, that wins a lot of fights. A lot of people can't throw more than about 25 punches. They're completely blown out. No training, nothing. So fitness is a really, really good thing. It also helps you run, also helps you get away. And a little bit of strength can also, again, help you get away. These things are very basic. So I would agree. Get in that gym if you want to, do all those things. But I wouldn't call it an excuse. I think you've worded that wrong. You say no excuse not to learn self-defense. I think somebody over 50 has an excuse not to learn self-defense. It's probably not going to work. So there is an excuse. It's stay out of trouble. If you can. But again, like I say, be strong, be fit, sure, all of those things. But I know it's hard for the ego to take, and I'll probably lose subscriptions about this, but unless you've come from a very specific type of background, at 50, if you weren't winning fights through your 30s and 40s, don't imagine yourself to be a hard man now. You're not. You're just not. Nor am I. You're just not. So pretending like you are potentially leaves your family without a dad. Pretending that you are puts you in positions of fighting that you might not normally been in. Pretending that you are makes you not see opportunities to de-escalate situations that don't need to get that far because of this chip on the shoulder. Let it go. If you've got to this point in life and you've managed to do it without fighting, that's a good thing. Be proud of it. With all the stuff that's going on in your country now, be proud of it that you're the last civilized people in this country. Don't be ashamed of it. Not being able to fight is, all right, we want to defend our wife and things like that. What I mean is, not being in trouble your whole life doesn't make you a bad person. And you know, the ego is the only thing that resists what I'm saying. The mind knows it, and that's why it hurts, and that's why it kicks back. Because deep down we know. Like, you lose your punch resistance at 40. So, yeah. So if you're 50, think about it. So, a lot of people learn to fight smarter, or they're well trained. That's what I'm saying. Those people will do better. They can fight way on later into life. But if you're not like that, then going to the gym, great. As I said, getting yourself stronger, all those things is cool. But the idea that you're going to start winning fights is dangerous. Anyway, I've got off topic, but I think it's a point worth making. Thank you, Spawn. I appreciate that, buddy. I really do appreciate everybody for coming on today as well. So we had Spawn. It's great to see you again, Spawn. I've missed you, buddy. Dave, great to see you. Capricorn, always good to see you. Babs, great to see you. Justice for Win. Again, appreciate your support from the USA, mate. Have I missed anybody? Vin, obviously, Vin as always. I love Vin to death. Well, not to death, but you know what I mean. I love Vin to pieces, and yeah, and Tina, obviously, always Tina. Tina's been great support. Missy Moon's been great support. Just go for all these names, yeah. So all of you, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I feel like if I say anything else, I'm just gonna waffle on. It's been about an hour, so we'll call it a day there. But your best weapon is your mind and your voice. I love to finish on that. Your best weapon is your mind and your voice. For anybody listening, that was from Dave, and I think that's brilliant. And flowers for all the girls from Tina there. And yeah, just a lot of good wishes from all the people in the chat to anybody listening. So have a great day. This is not intended to frighten you. This is intended to try and bring a little bit of realism into life so that we can all just perhaps de-escalate our own beliefs and tensions, because everything's boiling over at the moment, and what we can release in tension is a good thing at the moment. We need to focus it in the right places. I'm Tom Fury. This is Zero News. You're welcome, Tina. I'm calling it a day for now.